The Play-by-Play, Student Sports Network, the best students of sports. Good evening, everybody. It is For Your Thoughts, episode 3, which is kind of fitting since there's only 3 students this evening. We had 4 all set up. I don't know where the 4th one is, but hopefully maybe he'll remember and join us in a little bit. But we do have 4 topics to talk about this evening with you in the world of sports. Tonight with us, we have one of our returning champions, Alana, who won her first time on the show a couple weeks back. Julia, newcomer to the channel. Welcome to the channel, Julia. We're excited to have you. And Brad Romano, fresh off of, well, his bracket looks okay. We'll say okay so far. He did have an interesting pick going to the Final Four that's still alive that people made fun of him for, so we'll see how that goes. But tonight we do have interesting arguments about everything in sports. And the first one's really not about one sport in particular, but tonight our opening arguments are about where in sports should replay be expanded? We saw in the Super Bowl where a pivotal penalty kind of caused a lot of controversy. So should we expand it there? Who knows? We'll start with Brad on that. Brad, where in sports should replay be, we'll go with changed in general?
So I think for basketball, the replay system just needs to be changed as a whole. Every time there's an interesting call or they think there's a certain time on the clock it's not on the clock, it takes forever. It could take up to like 10 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes. It's just so long. I think what they need to do is make some sort of machine or just something where it can see the play or the time on the clock right away, and then they could just see it from there, and then they say, okay, that's what happened. Because instead, we're forced to sit and watch the same replay for 10 minutes and just wait for the game to continue. So I think that basketball as a whole should fix their replay system.
All right, basketball as a whole should fix the replay system. Completely understand that one. I've been watching some NCAA basketball, and quite frankly, I'm tired of them checking the clock every time something happens to make sure they have the right amount of time on the clock. So maybe there's a better way. What do you think, Julia? What is a better way you can think of that we could use replay in sports?
I'm actually going to go over to hockey, and I personally think when I'm watching a hockey game and, like, when there's a fight, I just don't really know who really started the fight and who should get thrown in the penalty box. And I feel like the NHL needs to improve their replay system on specifically the fights, because you don't really ever know. It seems to be clear, like I said, who started the fight in the first place. And I think if you had a more clear system, the referees and the fans would know, like, the specific players that need to be put in the penalty box. I think right now it's kind of unclear, and sometimes you just got to throw the players that look like that started it in the penalty box, when they might not even have been the ones that started it. So I think the NHL needs to do some improvements on that.
All right, so we have basketball, we have hockey. So apparently across the board, Alana, where are you going with replay system?
I'm going to take it in a different direction with baseball. There have been many rumors, and we've seen it in the minor leagues so far, robotic umpires. I think they're going to be the future. I think we're going to be seeing them a lot. And technology, it has some issues. It's never quite accurate. It can have some glitches. So I think once we get those robotic umpires full-time in the major leagues, which I think is going to be soon, we need to start seeing some challenges for balls and strikes. Now, obviously, I don't want that slowing down the game. MLB has put in the procedures this year to quicken the pace. So if we see that, maybe teams get 2, 3 of these calls per game to challenge these robots in their calls for balls and strikes, because I think we're going to see it. I think we're going to see some major mess ups from these robots, and those challenges will really be able to help the game.
All right, Alana, well, I just want to throw it back to you real quickly because I have a question. How do you challenge a robot when usually what we use to challenge the humans is a robot?
Yeah, so I think this is really just going to be when the robot messes up, and I'm hoping that there's going to be some type of angle from the robot where we see exactly what caused it to call technically the incorrect call, and then they'll be able to use that technology to go back and look, okay, it's going to be a strike, it's going to be a ball. Whatever the incorrect call, it can be overturned, and I don't know. I think we're going to have to see how it works out in the minors first. And then once it gets to the major league level, we'll be able to make sure that the calls are being correct.
Well, obviously, we're seeing some minors rules expand into Major League Baseball this year with the pitch clock and the larger bases. Julia, I know you're a baseball fan. We don't have to comment about the pitch clock yet because I know there's a reason not to do that for you right now. But how would you feel about challenging a robot come a few years now?
I mean, I think the robotic umps are a really smart thing. I mean, there's a lot of usually throughout the baseball season where there's calls that are questioned and there are calls that make an impact at the game like all other sports, and these robotic umps may be able to solve those issues and cause less of those confusing calls or questionable calls that can affect the outcome of the game.
All right, sounds good. Brad, I know you're not the biggest baseball guy. So do you think replay or robots could have a larger part in other sports as well?
I think it could be a big play as well. Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of, like they said, umpires, referees that just call a lot of controversial things that people don't agree on. So if robots can automatically call something that is right or a time on the clock, I think that's great, and that could definitely help sports in the future for sure.
Understand. Completely awesome. I'm not sure how I feel about, as a baseball player myself, I'm not sure how I feel about the robotics refs or umpires for balls and strikes, because it was kind of nice adjusting to each umpire and part of the game for a long time. But if that's where we're going, that's where we're going. But the best of the best, they say, don't ever miss. What was the guy in the World Series, Alana? How many calls did he miss for his whole game? I think or whole season was like 2. So I guess if you get the best of the best, maybe that's shouldn't happen very often. Sounds good. Anywhere in sports you guys think that maybe replay has gone too far, that they could kind of rein it back a little bit, Julia?
I mean, I can't think of too many. I can't think of anywhere else. I mean, like I said, hockey is like my main one, but maybe hockey needs to like add a little bit more because there's not too much replay in hockey, but there could be probably more.
Okay, Brad, anywhere you can think of in the sports world where they could dial back how much they use replay and go to the monitor? You talked about basketball a little bit. Anywhere else?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't really think of a sports league that really overuses the replay, though I think eventually it's bound to happen where it'll get too crazy. But maybe the NFL sometimes when there's a flag, they tend to show it a lot, but that's only sometimes. But so maybe perhaps the NFL. Mm-hmm.
All right, sounds good. Anything from you, Alana, before we move on to our next topic?
Yeah, I think Brett touched on it before in basketball, especially college basketball right now. I'm watching these games with a minute left on the clock. I think there's about maybe 15 more minutes of the game, but the amount of times they stop and look and see, okay, who has possession, how much time is left on the clock. It's too much time being wasted. Let's just play the game and get it to the final.
All right, sounds good. I can agree with that. All right, so let's go on to our next topic of conversation tonight. It was supposed to be our head-to-head matchup, which maybe we'll still do. Head-to-head, out of the last 16 left, who will win the men's national championship? So go ahead. We're going to go to Alana first. And then I'm actually going to jump in on this one since who's the person that Brad was supposed to go head-to-head with tonight is not here. So, Alana, who do you have winning out of the last 16 teams and why?
Yeah, so there are some really great teams still left in this tournament. And obviously, a lot of talk has been around the number 1 seeds, Alabama and Houston. But I'm going to go a different route tonight. I like the UCLA Bruins right now. I think they have a very strong veteran team. I think Alabama and Houston have a lot of freshmen who are leading the pack, and I get it. There's some great players, but these systems where they have these juniors, seniors who stay at school to play really have a better chance because they can develop chemistry and teach these younger guys how to really excel in these tournaments, which has a lot of pressure in them. And most of their players are leading in most stats. You have 2 seniors. You got Tiger Campbell, who's leading the team assist. You got Jamie Jacquez with 17.5 points per game, 8 rebounds a game. These guys are really leading. And I just think with a team like Alabama, they're really led by freshmen. I just don't think they're going to be able to get it done.
All right, so the experience at UCLA, we met a few of those UCLA Bruins last year at the Los Angeles camp for Play-by-Play Sports. Julia, who do you have winning out of the last 16?
So crazy enough, I don't have a definitive answer right now because I'm currently I'm looking at the score of the Michigan State and Kansas State game, but I think one of those two teams, whoever comes out on top of that game, is going to win the national championship. Kansas State and Michigan State have both played some really tough games in their past couple rounds, especially Michigan State. Michigan State had to play USC the first round. USC is not an easy team to play, and they came out on top. And then Michigan State, we saw them play on Sunday. They played Marquette, and it was a phenomenal game, and they came out on top again. And Marquette was a 2 seed. I mean, then you got to look at Kansas State. Kansas State looks just as good. They beat the Kentucky Wildcats, Kentucky's been known as a team to look out for in March Madness, but I think Michigan State or Kansas State can win this all because if you watch the Houston game, Houston almost lost that game. And I think Alabama has a chance, but I think Kansas State and Michigan State still come out on top.
All right, so obviously we'll see what happens there. Currently the score is 67-66, Michigan State. The Sparties 1 point up on Kansas State, according to Google at this moment with 8 minutes left. So Alana, she's saying Michigan State and Kansas State, two teams really nobody's picked. What do you think about – do you think Kansas State has tied it up. Do you think Tom Izzo can get his Sparties back to a national championship?
I'm not sure if it's going to be this year. I think they have made some major improvements this year compared to last, but I just think there's some better teams right now. But then both Michigan State and Kansas State. Sometimes the seeding isn't quite accurate. I think I don't agree entirely with the seeding of the two teams, but overall, I just think that there's going to be a team that's going to outplay one of them, and I just don't think they're going to be able to reach the final and win it.
All right, quick updated score on those two, 70-70. I guess my phone was a little behind. Julia, so she says the Sparties and Kansas State might just not have the talent that UCLA has. What do you have to say about her Bruins?
Well, I mean, I think UCLA I think they have a tougher road to the final. I mean, they have Gonzaga. Gonzaga's a very good team, and I'm not saying that Michigan State and Kansas State have an easy ride to the final championship, but I think that UCLA could struggle against a team like Gonzaga, and if Miami somehow pulls out and they pull through with Houston and stuff, I think Miami could make a big impact on UCLA, and I don't know if UCLA can make it past those two teams.
Yeah, both tough teams where Kansas State and Michigan State have Tennessee or FAU. FAU has been looking really good for a 9 seed. I know Alana had talked to me earlier before the show about possibly changing the seeding way that teams get seeded in the NCAA tournament. I don't know if the NCAA will ever do that after such excitement that the 16 and 15 seeds have had this year. And if they were ranked differently, maybe it wouldn't be as exciting to people and big as upset. But we'll see. Both great opinions. I appreciate you. And you guys will be right back after we go to our second head-to-head today. Real quick, before we do that, we are going to do our real quick advertisement for our camps. Play-by-play sports broadcasting camp, the #1 sports broadcasting camp in the country. We start in Dallas in early June, finish up in Green Lane, Pennsylvania in late or mid-August. In between, we take the big cities, Los Angeles. North Jersey is pretty much New York. Chicago. We sit on the other side of New York and Connecticut, Philadelphia, where most of us have found our homes over the years. So if you are interested in anything with our play-by-play camps, we even have a virtual option if you're interested in that, or an intensive workout or intensive camp right outside of Philadelphia, a 3-day workshop as well. Go to playbyplaycamps.com or follow us at playbyplaycamps on most of our social medias. All right, Brad Romano, since your boy didn't show up, you get to face me, and you're probably going to destroy me because I didn't plan anything about what I can debate. Yeah, I don't agree with your opinion on who's going to win the tournament.
Yeah.
But I don't have much else to back it up besides that. So how about you go first while I try to put my arguments together since Jacob didn't show this evening. Who do you have winning the NCAA tournament?
So I got the Houston Cougars going all the way and winning March Madness. Going into the season, Houston had very high expectations, and it's safe to say that they lived up to the hype of the 33-3 record. They ranked #1 in the KenPom, and they're led by phenomenal players Marcus Sasser, a great scorer, 17 points per game. Jawan Roberts is great on the defensive end, averaging a block, plus he gets 8 rebounds. And Jamal Shed, also a very valuable player on defense, especially, almost averaging 2 steals. They rank second in the country in both scoring, defense, and field goal percentage. They're the only team to rank in the top 5 of the AP poll every single week, which I thought was a very interesting stat. Like I said, Marcus Sasser, 17 points per game. He scored double figures in pretty much every game that I've watched, at least. I just don't see this Houston team losing. As to what she said earlier about Houston barely winning against Auburn, I mean, it was a close game to half, but then Houston that team sparked and just beat them, destroyed them. I think this is Houston's tournament to win, and I think they're going to do it pretty easily.
I had Houston a couple weeks ago in my first initial bracket. And then a bunch of people who will remain nameless that were on this network last week, besides Brad, told me their best player was hurt, wasn't sure if he was going to be the first 2 rounds, got a little worried. I switched it. But after watching the games, I'm glad I switched it. I switched it to Alabama. And here's why. They have just been solid. They haven't even been in a close game. I know, obviously, they played 16 seed in the first round, but then everybody thought Maryland might give them a shot. Maryland wasn't close the whole entire game. But like you said, Houston did have a chance Auburn did have a chance. It looked like they were in the game at halftime. But it seems like that happens a lot of times in this tournament where the good teams take over in the second half and just put any risk of losing absolutely out the door. I think Alabama's just been more consistent. I think they've had harder opponents all year long. And now, just in time when they've had harder opponents all year long in the SEC, in Kentucky, Tennessee, and those other tough teams, they're getting an easy road to the national title. When it comes to who they're playing, like I said, they beat Maryland, San Diego State. They're good for their league. I don't think they have a chance against Alabama. Then they're going to get Creighton and Princeton. Creighton, unless they're hitting threes nonstop, I don't think stands a chance against them. And then if they get to the semifinal in the Final Four, they're going to get FAU, Kansas State, or Michigan, who I know Julia was high on, but I don't think they're on Alabama's level, or a team they're very familiar with in Tennessee, who I think is the biggest threat to them not making the final. I do have Houston having a chance, but I think Texas might be too good for them to even get to the final. Texas has been on fire lately, taking care of Kansas in the Big 12 tournament. Usually a lot of teams that do really well in tournaments go far. Some of those have not worked out so far this tournament, but I have Alabama. What do you say to Alabama?
I really like Alabama too, but I really, I don't think Maryland's that good from watching a lot of Big Ten games. I don't know. Let me rephrase that, because Maryland's a good team. I just don't think they're one of the better teams in the Big Ten. From watching a lot of Big Ten games since I'm a Rutgers fan, I just really have never seen Maryland as that top team that can upset a 1 seed. However, they're still a very good team. But as for Houston, I think a very important thing that Houston has is they have a lot of really good guards. And I think having really good guards in this tournament is very important. Teams like Miami and Texas also have a lot of good guards that rank, in my opinion, amongst the best backcourts in the country. You got Miami with Isaiah Wong. You got Texas with Tyrese Hunter. But, Sasser's healthy now. And I think with Sasser healthy, this team is just different. We saw in the AAC tournament when they were going up against Memphis, this Houston team was different. They didn't look good. But I think as long as Sasser stays healthy, as long as he's on the court, along with the other great guards that they have, I really just can't see Houston losing. I can't. And I just think that defensively they're great too. I don't see a flaw in them at the moment, and I think they're going to run through it pretty easily.
All right. I completely understand. Like I said, I think they're a really good team. I just think their road is too hard to get there. But my opinion doesn't matter anymore because Mr. Muncie has showed up. You missed the first topic there, Jacob, but that's okay, bud. I'm glad you're here. Glad to see you. I was thinking about possibly putting you in the running to win tonight because I knew you'd had great arguments, but I don't know. We'll see what happens now. So Jacob Muncie, we're talking about who do you think is going to win the national championship of the
I said
16 teams
everything
left.
already.
We've had Houston. Brad, if you want to debate him real quick on what he says, if you don't,
I'll debate. I'll try my best.
He might say who you just said. We have no idea because I didn't get his thing in the pre-show meeting. Jacob Muncie, who's winning the national championship?
I believe I picked UCLA. Yes, I did in my second chance bracket because of how horrible my last one was. But we don't talk about that bracket. But yeah, I think their path is much easier than all the rest. I feel like they're gonna probably beat Gonzaga, and then all they have to do is then beat UConn. And then I actually have an upset with Texas beating Houston, so they have to beat Gonzaga, UConn, and Texas, which might not seem like the easiest path. But on the other side of the bracket, I have San Diego State beating Alabama, and then I have Creighton beating Princeton, obviously, and then it's going to be Creighton versus Michigan State. So I think with the bracket I made, I think UCLA has the best path to get into. Also because they're one of just the best teams in the country, and I'm surprised that they weren't going to get a 1 seed. But, yeah, I guess they didn't. But
all right. Well, probably the reason they get the 1 seed is because they didn't win their conference title game. They lost it against Arizona. Otherwise, maybe they would have a number 1 seed, Brad. So, Jacob, we got your point. But real quick, I want to ask Jacob a question because he said he had Houston losing to Texas, and that's the pick that Brad made. He thinks Houston's going to win. So why do you think Texas is better than Houston, Jacob?
why do
you said you had why is Texas better than Houston? You said you had Texas beating Houston, and that's the pick that Brad made.
Because Houston has not had a whole bunch of competition. They play in a conference, what's it called? The American Athletic Conference, with not a whole bunch of teams that are amazing. They got Memphis and Cincinnati. Those are the only two really good teams. And sure, yeah, they won their tournament. But the thing is, like, they don't play in as tough as a conference as Texas does. And Texas has to play like Kansas, Baylor, and as well as Texas Tech. So it's much tougher for them to, get as high of a seed is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I feel like Houston's a little bit overrated in this case because they don't have as much of a competition.
Yep, understand. Sounds good. No, actually. Brad, real quick.
Yeah.
What do you think you would do, or why do you think UCLA is not good enough?
Well, I want to say something real quick. It's not just you. A lot of people say, Houston hasn't played that many good teams. I really don't think that matters now. We're in March Madness. We're at the point where a lot of teams are playing other certain teams. I just think that Houston is overall better than UCLA. Kind of what I was going back to what I was telling you, Zeke. Number 1 in the KenPom. They were in the top 5 of the AP poll every single week. Led by Marcus Sasser, who is amazing, 17.1 points per game, double figures in all the games I watched. They have an important trio of guards, which is very important in March Madness. And like you said, they have a very tough path. Miami has guards like Isaiah Long and Jordan Miller, whereas Texas has guards like Tyrese Hunter, Marcus Carr. But I think with a healthy Marcus Sasser, with a great defensive team, but with guys like Jawan Roberts and Jamal Shed, I can't see Houston losing, and I think they're going to win it all.
All right, sounds good. All right, so that is our head-to-head section. We got our one-on-one argument we were waiting for since Jacob Muncie came back in. Our next topic of conversation for everybody this evening, more or less, who won the trade between the Chicago Bears and the Carolina Panthers. Let me change my logo there since we're not obviously talking head-to-head anymore. But, hey, Jacob, since you just joined us and this was actually your idea for a topic, more or less, should the Bears got more out of the trade, or should Carolina have given up less? Who do you think won this trade?
I'm going to say that the Chicago Bears won this trade, and the thing is, the Bears have never had a really good receiving core. Justin Fields' best target was Darnell Mooney, and we all know Darnell Mooney is not going to be that guy in Chicago, and I don't think he ever was. And so him having an actual good target and him having that running ability, I think those two combined make them a very good force together. Plus, they have another high draft pick in the number 9 overall pick. Plus, I believe they got 2 second-round picks, and they have a lot of future ahead of them. Let's just say that. And all Carolina got was the first overall pick, and they're probably just going to get C.J. Stroud out of that. So maybe that might change this entire franchise around, but I doubt it. And I think that the Bears have a much brighter future than the Panthers do.
Did you just talk badly about your Ohio State quarterback there, C.J. Stroud? All they're going to get is C.J. Stroud. I know you're a big Stroud fan there, Jacob Munson.
But it's not like Stroud is going to help their team all the way. It's not like they're going to be a brand new team with C.J. Stroud. They need somebody around them.
I understand. So we'll see who they can put around them.
Because DJ Moore is like their only target.
And there's a funny fact that I heard this week that DJ Moore would be the all-time leading receiver in Chicago Bears history. He has more receiving yards in his 5 years of being in the NFL than any receiver in the history of the Bears. That's saying the Bears haven't had any wide receivers ever. Alana, are you happy? Or you think the Bears won this, finally getting a receiver that can put up numbers?
I think this is a win for Carolina. And since 2019, Carolina has had 7 different quarterbacks. 7. That's a lot of quarterbacks. And if they can draft a guy like C.J. Stroud, who I definitely like for this team, I think they're going to be able to really build around this guy. We've seen in the past, even though Bryce Young is another amazing talent, look at how Justin Fields is doing right now compared to Tua. We're seeing that I think Justin Fields is developing a lot faster. I know the injuries with Tua, but I just really like what Justin Fields has done coming out of Ohio State. And I think we're going to be able to see something similar with C.J. Stroud. And even though, yes, DJ Moore, that's a crazy stat right there that DJ Moore is now the best Bears wide receiver, even though he's never played a snap for that team. Carolina's going to be able to really build around this guy. Yes, they don't have DJ Moore or Christian McCaffrey anymore, but this draft class has really great wide receivers and running backs that I think they'll be able to draft in the second, third round to be able to really improve their chances this season.
Yeah, this draft is a little short on when it comes to running backs, outside of maybe Bijan Robinson out of Texas.
Yeah,
but wide receiver, it's pretty good. Julia, since we haven't heard from you in a while because you were first in the head-to-head matchup, how are you thinking about this trade between these two teams?
So when I first saw this trade, I believe that the Bears fully won this trade, and Carolina was just getting their first overall pick because I think that's what Carolina needed was their first overall pick. But after they made the transactions for Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen, I think the Panthers are starting to win on this trade because they got rid of DJ Moore to go to the Bears, but they kind of just replaced him by getting a new running back and a new wide receiver, and now they're getting the first overall pick. And they're going to be able to get their quarterback for the future. I think Carolina is now the winner of this trade. Before the Bears were the winner, but now I think it's Carolina Panthers.
I mean, Carolina has done pretty well. I mean, they're not. You would think obviously Miles Sanders is not Christian McCaffrey, and DJ Moore is a younger version. Adam Thielen was amazing a few years ago, but he might be over the hill now. We'll find out. But they have added some really good pieces in the offseason. Brad, how do you feel about this trade?
Well, honestly, at the moment, I don't have winner because I think it's way too early to say who's won this trade. We don't know who the Panthers are necessarily drafting. For all we care, the QB will draft. The QB they're going to draft is either going to be an all-time great QB, a starting caliber QB, or this QB could be a bust and just a horrible pick. You know, the Panthers, like Julia said, have been doing a great job. They signed Miles Sanders, Adam Thielen, who's a little older, but can still be a good, solid veteran. As for the Bears, you know, they got a haul from this, as they should. It's the first overall pick. 2 first-round picks for the future, 2 second-round picks. DJ Moore, who is now the Bears' best wide receiver ever, which is a funny stat. But yeah, I think it's too early to say. If we're basing off right now, I would lean towards Chicago just because of the haul they got. But If the Panthers get their QB of the future, they get some more weapons. I think the Panthers could win this trade, but I think as of right now, too early to tell.
All right. Brad, it's no fun to say too early to tell. What would be the point of arguing sports if you just said too early to tell? But I'm glad you said you think the Bears might come out. They did get a good haul, especially with how many teams are probably out there looking for quarterbacks that were close in the Colts, the Texans, Carolina, obviously, the Falcons. There's a bunch of teams that are looking for quarterback help right now. So they obviously got a lot for it. So, Jacob, you were the only one that said definitively this is a Bears win. They got a great weapon. They have their quarterback ready. Real quick, since you're an Ohio State guy, who do you think will have the better professional career? Do you think it is the man that's already established in Chicago, but really only the running game because he had no one to pass to, and Justin Fields? Or if CJ Stroud is that number one overall guy to Carolina, who do you think is going to have the better thing? You're muted, Jacob.
We don't know if CJ Stroud is going to be great in the NFL. I hope he is. But it seems like Justin Fields with his running ability, it's just too precious for the Bears. And if they somehow get rid of it, it's gonna absolutely destroy their entire franchise. And so I think that's a huge part of why he's doing so well is because of the running game. And now he actually has somebody to throw to. And you saw what he could do when he had somebody to throw to at Ohio State. He threw to Chris Olave. It was almost like an automatic catch every single time. Or at least he's a great run after catch guy. And so I honestly think it's also too early to tell here. But I think Justin Fields will end up having a better career than CJ Stroud just because more than likely he's going to go to Carolina, and Carolina really doesn't have a whole lot around them. Plus, they don't have the as bright of a future as the Bears do. So, and the Bears are going to get used. So I think Justin Fields is going to have a better career, but I think it's almost too early to tell.
All right, Julie and Alana, real quick. We'll go to Julie, then Alana. I want you guys to answer me this question. Who has the better season? Does Carolina have a chance to have as good a season as Chicago does next year? Chicago has a decent roster. Or do you think maybe they're not there this upcoming year and Carolina could compete with them? Julia?
I mean, I think the thing with the Bears right now is that they are going to be I think they're going to be in a pretty competitive division this year. I think the Lions are going to be pretty good this year, and you can't count the Vikings out either. I mean, we all saw what happened last year with the Vikings, but I think right now we're looking at the Bears being in a more competitive division than the Panthers are. So the Panthers could get up there in the standings in their division because I think they are in a weaker division this year. I think at some point they could compete with each other, but we have to see how these players that both teams have recently acquired how they fit in with the chemistry of the team. And I think right now it's kind of hard to tell.
All right, Alana, actually the question I want you to answer is, do you think this is the basic question I said at the beginning, more or less. Do you think the Bears could have got more, or do you think the Carolina should have given less? Is there either team do you think that went one way too far?
I think that maybe the Panthers went a bit too far. I think giving up DJ Moore is a lot, especially by the time, I feel like right now Adam Thielen is who they've signed. Maybe they can go out and get a wide receiver in the draft. But giving up a guy like DJ Moore is a lot. It's a big commitment, and I get it. They're desperate at quarterback. Their best quarterback has been Baker Mayfield. That's their best guy, who's now been on 3 teams in 1 year. So if they can get a solid guy from CJ Stroud, but giving up DJ Moore will be tough. And drafting a quarterback like CJ Stroud without any weapons around him, like what DJ Moore would have been, is a lot to give up for a pick, I think.
Understand. Brad, any final thoughts on who you think won this trade and maybe how you think whoever Carolina is going to pick first overall is going to pan out?
I think with the Panthers, they're either going CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson, but I'm leading more towards CJ Stroud. I think Stroud has potential to be a good QB in the NFL, but he's 50-50 for me, in my opinion. If CJ Stroud whoever the Panthers draft a QB, let's say it's CJ Stroud, he turns out to be great. Panthers get great weapons at free agency or something like that. In the future, they're great. I say the Panthers win this trade. But if the Bears draft well with the picks they got, Justin Fields develops even more into a great QB, DJ Moore plays great, as he should. And, defensively, they got some great signings. I think the Bears can win this trade. As of right now, I'm leaning towards Chicago. But if the Panthers develop their QB that they draft in the future, I'm going Carolina. But as of right now, Chicago Bears win the trade.
I understand completely. I mean, especially now they have Aaron Rodgers out of their division because he was their bugaboo and they could never get past him. So
yeah,
Chicago's future looks bright because of what they're doing and also because of who's not in their division anymore. Yeah, Jacob, you want to say one more thing?
Well, Aaron Rodgers technically is still in their division, but
technically, I don't think he's going to play a snap even if he doesn't get traded right away. I don't think he's playing a snap for the Green Bay Packers next year. So we'll see what happens. All right. Well, our final topic before the final thoughts is, well, it's usually a quick question, but it can be as long as you guys want it to be. Who will be the National League MVP this season? I think we talked about in the pre-show that the AL MVP is pretty much wrapped up before the season starts unless someone goes absolutely bonkers. Because it took Aaron Judge last year to hit 62 home runs to take the MVP away from Shohei Ohtani. So unless someone else has another historic year, Shohei's winning in the AL. But NL is wide open. There's so many great players that are going to be playing the NL this year. We'll go to one of our baseball experts first in Alana. Who do you have winning the NL MVP? And please tell me he's not wearing blue and orange.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but he will be wearing blue and orange. I like Francisco Lindor this year. I think the Mets definitely had a little bit of a disappointment there at the end of the year. 100 more wins is amazing. I was so pumped going into the postseason and then fell short against the San Diego Padres. I think if Francisco Lindor can really have a breakout year this year with his third year with the Mets, have a breakout year, I think these new rules about the shift are really going to help him out. I think he's going to be able to get more hits, more RBIs, more home runs even. Pitch clock, maybe learn some secret tricks there and mess the pitchers up. I really like Francisco Lindor going into this year to be able to really take the Mets to the next step to hopefully win a playoff game and a playoff series.
Very interesting pick. That was not the Met I thought you would choose because I don't even know if he's the betting favorite of the Mets players to win the MVP. That might be the polar bear at first base. But Lindor was a great player. They were obviously excited when they got him, so we'll see what happens there. Julia, I know you don't like the team in blue and orange by the shirt you're wearing currently. Who do you have winning the National League MVP?
So honestly, I gotta go with another shortstop, and it's in the same division. I think Trey Turner can win this year's NL MVP. I think he can really break out for the Phillies, especially since we don't know Harper's status. Like, he could come back at the end of May. He could come back in June. He could come back after the All-Star break. We really don't know because there's been so many things. And after finding out about Rhys Hoskins' season-ending injury, I think right now Trey Turner could really be the star of the Phillies for at least the first couple months of the season. And if he can do what he did in the World Baseball Classic, he could definitely be in the running for MVP.
Yeah, I'm hoping, as a fellow Phillies fan, he didn't have all his magic disappear in the World Baseball Classic, but he hit another home run today in spring training. I think it's a great underrated pick, but the only question is, since he might be hitting leadoff now that Bryce Harper is out for half season, and now that another guy that was supposed to be hitting behind him is out for the whole entire season with a torn knee ligament in Rhys Hoskins, will he be able to put up enough production out of that leadoff spot? A former Phillies leadoff player did it before, Jimmy Rollins, so we'll see what happens, and also a shortstop. So it'll be an exciting option. Two great shortstops in the NL East. Brad, are you going to a different position for a MVP in the National League?
So for my MVP in the National League, I'm going to say that Juan Soto wins it. He was a favorite last year, but he didn't quite meet expectations, but he still boasted a 20.3% walk rate with 27 home runs. He's an easy bet for 30 home runs and a 280 batting average. And I think he's obviously so valuable to the Padres, and I think that Juan Soto is going to win MVP this season.
I don't know where Jacob disappeared to, but I hope he comes back so he can get his pick. Juan Soto, obviously a good pick. He was, like you said, he was the favorite last year, and this year for a whole entire season, he will have Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Xander Bogaerts hitting around him. So that's pretty good protection for a guy that maybe the reason he got off to such a slow start last year was because of the lack of protection he had in the Nationals lineup, but now is hitting in what many consider the best lineup in baseball. So, Jacob, I don't know if you heard him, but he did pick Juan Soto of the San Diego Padres as the NL MVP. Who is your National League most valuable player?
Well, I'm not the biggest guy for baseball, but I'm just going to say Ronald Acuna Jr. just because last year he hit 15 home runs at 50 RBIs and a batting average of .26, which yeah, I hope that's a lot because I'm not a baseball guy, and he also had 71 runs. So yeah, that's why I have him. I don't really have much else to say. So
Jacob,
yeah.
I can tell you right now, you're making a better argument than you think because those numbers, though, in a full season aren't that great. But Ronald Acuna Jr. didn't play a full season last year. So when he's healthy for a whole season in that Braves lineup, Ronald Acuna Jr. could definitely be a contender for the National League MVP. So three players in the NL East mentioned and one Padre. I think the likelihood of a player from the NL East or a Padre winning is very, very high. Alana, do you even think Francisco Lindor is the best shortstop in the NL East, or do you think it's the guy that Julia mentioned?
I think he can be. He definitely has the potential to be. We haven't seen it. I don't think so. Trey Turner has really been amazing. He bounced around Nationals. He's great. Dodgers, great. I'm sure he'll be great again with the Phillies. But if Francisco Lindor can really take up his game to the next level this year, defensively and offensively, not only can he be the best shortstop in the NL East, but I think he can win the MVP.
I understand. Julia, we've seen, before you guys were born, now that I realize how old I am, there was a rivalry in the NL East between two shortstops, in Jose Reyes and Jimmy Rollins. This is that again. Why do you give the edge to our shortstop in Philadelphia, or your shortstop in Philadelphia, over the man up in New York?
Like I said earlier, I think right now, when you're saying MVP, you're saying most valuable player, and I think there's a lot of players on that Mets team that can contribute the same amount as Francisco Lindor can. The Phillies do have Kyle Schwarber, and they do have other pieces in their pitching rotation and in their lineup. But I think now with Rhys Hoskins out and Bryce Harper's return to be determined, I think Trey Turner needs to take the charge in this team, and he needs to take the lead, and he needs to be the leader in the clubhouse. And I think right now he's over Francisco Lindor.
If he finds a way to keep them in the hunt until Bryce gets back now with Rhys out, it might give him a big leg up. Brad, I want to go to you real quick one more time. You said a Padre. Do you think the fact that he has so many good players on his team, and Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr. coming back from suspension, do you think that could hurt Juan Soto's case to be MVP, or do you think that just helps because his numbers will be that much better?
It could be both either way. I mean, yeah, like he has like a lot of very talented players on his team, and Fernando Tatis and Xander Bogaerts, so maybe they play better than Juan Soto. And they can get an MVP over him, but I think that just Juan Soto is such a talented player that I think he'll be fine with all these stars on his team. I still think that he has a very good shot at winning the NL MVP.
Sounds good. And Jacob, I have one more question for you. I know you're not the biggest baseball guy, but I think this one's fairly simple. So Ronald Acuna Jr. is in the best division in baseball. Maybe the three best teams in all the National League are in the NL East. Well, we'll see what happens with all the injuries to the Mets and Phillies so far. But do you think the Atlanta Braves are going to have to win that division for Ronald Acuna to win the MVP, or do you think if they finish in a wild card, that'll be good enough for him?
I honestly don't think it really matters where they plays. I think he'll still. Well, actually, I guess him playing that great probably will put him at a wild card spot, making it perfectly fine because I feel like he's going to have a great season like he normally does, and so. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. So Ronald Acuna Jr., now with all the injuries that are piling up for the Mets and the Phillies, there's a chance that it'll be back to back, which seems like forever, the Atlanta Braves winning the division yet again. So we've come to that time on the show where it is time for all of our students' final thoughts of the evening, where they will give us a thought, a rant or a hot take that they might have about something going on in the world of sports. So who should I go to first? The winner is still up in the air. Who am I going to give the winner to? It's going to come down to these final thoughts. So who should I start with? I guess I'll start with Brad Romano. Brad Romano, what is your final thought?
People might get mad at me for this, but this NFL season, Daniel Jones will be a top 10 QB in the NFL. When you talk about Daniel Jones, you talk about a guy who has never had a wide receiver one in his career. You talk about wide receivers like Sterling Shepard, Kenny Galladay, Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, who no one heard of till a couple games ago. Kenny Bust Galladay. The man has never had a wide receiver one. He developed insanely good last year. He only threw like 5 picks or less. And for the people that say Daniel Jones creates a lot of turnovers, well, look at what just happened. He also ran for 700 rushing yards. He's extremely mobile. His decision-making has improved. Giants have signed guys like Paris Campbell, Jamison Crowder for good depth. And then when they go into the draft, they will draft that wide receiver one, whether it be Jackson Smith-Njigba, whether it be Zay Flowers, whether it be Quentin Johnson, it doesn't matter. Whoever that wide receiver one will be, Daniel Jones will work with them, and he will prove his haters wrong and be a top 10 QB this season.
That is not a take I was expecting to hear this evening. But, I mean, he can definitely be a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the NFC because outside of Jalen Hurts, there's no definitive good quarterbacks in the NFC. So we'll see what happens there. Oh, I made Brad solo again. Didn't want to do that. All right, Alana, I know what Julia's take is going to be, so I'm excited to hear yours first. What do you have for your final thought?
All right, so we've all been watching March Madness, and I think it's awesome. You see all the marching bands out there in the stands hyping up the crowd, hyping up the players. So I want to see these marching bands in Major League Sports. I want to be able to see these bands out there at an NFL game, at a hockey game. Can you imagine how awesome it'd be to have the drums going at a hockey game? It would be so much fun. It'd be electric, an atmosphere for the fans in the building. It'd be electric for the fans at home. And my example here is the World Baseball Classic. In Taiwan, during the pool play, it was so much fun to watch these games. I'd be sitting there at 6 a.m, so excited to watch these games over there in Taiwan. They were having fun. It was loud. The music was pumping through the stadium. And I think sports would just be so much more exciting if we had marching bands in all major league sports.
That's an awesome take that I never thought I'd hear before. It might have put you right in the running to get your second penny for your thoughts and a win. A great thought. And it is. Baseball overseas seems like a lot more fun environment. Wonder if it'll ever come to America. It'll just be relaxing like it is every summer. All right, Julia. I know what your take's going to be, but I know it's a good one. So give it to me here. What's your final thought?
Listen, MLB is starting to go way too far with this. Let's push the pace of play to make the game as short as we can make it. And the one problem with that is this pitch clock. The pitch clock is rushing this game way too much. And once you think about it, once we get into the major league season this year, games are starting to become 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes at max. If it's 3, that's shocking at this point with the pitch clock. And you also got to put in the factor of fan experience. Now the games are shorter, there's less fan experience. And how fun is that for a fan if they don't get as much time as they used to at ballparks? And the other thing you got to look at is the pitchers and the batters. They're changing their routines to fit in this pitch clock timer. And the final point here is, why is the pitch clock affecting how games are ending? We had a spring training game against the Red Sox and the Braves like a couple weeks ago, and the game ended in a tie because the guy struck out because the pitch clock ran out. I don't think this pitch clock is running how it should be right now, and it's rushing the game of baseball way too much.
All right, I knew what was coming because I've heard you told me about it, and I was excited to hear it. My computer almost died from the battery, so I'm glad I was able to jump to the thing. So before his computer dies, let's go to Jacob Muncie while I determine who I think is going to win their penny for their thoughts.
So
Go ahead, Jake. What's your final thought, bud?
In my opinion, I think the Jets getting Aaron Rodgers will be the best thing that they've ever done since drafting Joe Namath back in like 1965. Because really, this team has everything that they need except for the QB. And they had Zach Wilson. We all know Zach Wilson's not that guy in New York. He's probably not going to be in the NFL for much longer. And Breece Hall, with him getting injured, like not even halfway through the season, he was still their leading rusher. That's how well he was doing in that until he got injured. So him having a completely healthy season, I think that will make their running game much better. Plus, they already have a great rookie receiver in Garrett Wilson, who won Offensive Rookie of the Year. And also on defense, they have arguably the best cornerback in the NFL, Sauce Gardner. Plus, C.J. Mosley having 158 total tackles and Quincy Williams having 106 total tackles. And I just don't understand how this Jets. I mean, maybe the Jets will jet like they always do, but hopefully they should not have to jet this year if they get Aaron Rodgers, because the pieces are just absolutely perfect here in New York, and I don't understand why they haven't traded for him yet, but I think now is the perfect time to.
I completely agree with you, Jacob. I don't know why it's taken so long either, but great take. I think it would be a great option for them. I know Brad's watching the basketball game because he's freaking out over there. All right, so let's figure out who wins the penny for their thoughts. We had some people commenting. We had some people liking when people were talking about stuff. So let's see what I'm going to go through all the arguments. So we started in the beginning with what replay should be expanded and put down. Jacob wasn't here for that, and since Jacob showed up late, we say it to Jacob every week. It's not this week, Jacob. Maybe next week you'll get the win. Jacob, he knows he's one of my favorite people that we have at camp and one of my favorite students of sports, but it's not this week, and it's just because he had the time wrong, and that's okay. We'll work on his alarms on his phone. Brad Romano has had a good take, has had UConn possibly making the Final Four, which is still en route, but since he got so distracted and was watching that game, got so excited about it, distracted from our debates, I'm not sure I can give the penny to Brad Romano either. Also because I got the debate against him, and I feel like he was beating me too bad. I don't want to give him this as well. So it comes down to Julie and Alana. And basically, I'm just going to do this because Alana already has one. So why would I give her a second one? So congratulations. Winning her first PvP penny for her thoughts. I think Jacob's computer finally died. I know Brad's not happy by the decision, but that's okay, Brad. I was happy to have you here again. Thank you very much, all three of you, for coming on. Julia, how was your first time on the network?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, I wasn't sure what I was in for. I was preparing like an hour before since it was such a short notice, but I had a lot of fun, and I would definitely come back for sure.
Awesome. We'll be glad to have you back. That's the other reason you wanted us. You saved us because one of our people that was supposed to be on tonight had a family thing that they had to take care of. So, Alana, we will see you next Thursday for the MLB preview show. Actually, next Wednesday, we will be on live. And then next weekend, we will have some play-by-play for the first time on this network. Play-by-play of the Final Four games. We will talk to you, everybody, then. Have a great evening. The Play-by-Play Student Sports Network. The best students of sports.